Hey, what's up guys? It's Shadow Warrior back once again, and today I wanted to do a little something different for my channel, and I wanted to do a little discussion video talking about Killing Floor 2. Now, I've been playing this game a lot, ever since the Halloween and Christmas themed events, which gave all these dead enemies very unique appearances, along with adding a few maps and some new guns, and it's just been a ton of fun. So I just wanted to take a moment and talk about why you guys should give it a try. So, without further ado, cue the ass-kicking, Zed-slaying intro. Okay, so first off, are you someone who enjoys zombie games? Are you a fan of wielding a fairly large variety of weaponry that offers some satisfying kick to it when you pull the trigger? Do you enjoy playing survival games where you can choose a bunch of different classes and try to hold out as long as you can possibly manage? Do you enjoy games that encourage teamwork, where you must work together as a team in order to survive increasingly difficult waves of zombies? Or are you maybe the type of player that just gets easily smitten with epic slow motion kill shots and seeing cool stuff happen on your screen? If any of that clicks with you, then Killing Floor 2 is most definitely a horde shooter you should at the very least consider trying out. For those of you who may not be aware, Killing Floor 2 is a first-person shooter developed and published by Tripwire Interactive, and it is the sequel to 2009's Killing Floor, which is exclusive to the PC. In this universe, teams of civilians and mercenaries band together in order to wipe out the Zed Menace, which are biologically engineered mutant test subjects that are running rampant all across Europe, and within a month after the events of the first game, have spread even beyond Europe, causing governments to collapse and communication systems to fail all over the continent. I remember the first time I saw this game. 2 years ago, I randomly stumbled across a gameplay video posted by IGN, and sure, I thought it looked pretty neat, definitely taking notice of the slow motion Z-time mechanic that seemed to be one of the main selling points of the game, but to me, it just seemed like any other horde survival shooter, and not really anything special, so I didn't really keep up with it, and kinda just moved on. Then a few months later, my good buddy Wiktisgood tells me that there's a free trial going on for PS4 that I wasn't even aware of. So I figured, why the hell not? I'll give it a go. And boy, am I glad I did, because once I got to play this game for myself, I saw firsthand just how much fun and addictive it can be. That said, even though I was really enjoying the gunplay and pulling off these epic slow-mo kills, I still just wasn't convinced it was worth buying, and I didn't feel it would have a ton of lasting appeal for me personally, so I just never did. Oh boy, was I ever so completely wrong about that. One of the biggest mistakes I've ever made as a lover of video games was truly underestimating what joys Killing Floor 2 can offer, because ever since I met my pal Christian, we've been playing the absolute hell out of it, since it was at one point a free PlayStation Plus title, and I'll admit, I'm fucking addicted to this game. And not only that, but the developers continue to add all sorts of updates, outfits, maps, and new guns, all completely free. I mean, okay, the cosmetic stuff will cost you, but none of the actual content is locked behind any sort of paywall, and it's absolutely amazing what this company gives back to its community. So with my newfound adoration of this incredible game, I wanted to share my opinions of the game with you guys, and just bring more awareness of how awesome I think it truly is, and what I feel it represents for the industry going forward. Alright, the game premise is relatively simple. A team of up to 6 players chooses a map, of which there are over 20 to pick from, picks a class of their choosing along with any perks that they've unlocked, and has to survive wave after wave of increasingly enemy counts, using the money they acquire after a round is completed, otherwise known as dosh, to spend it on weapons, ammo, and gear to make for a much more efficient Zed killer in the next round, with a bunch of weaponry to experiment and play with. There's multiple different difficulties, Zed types, modes, and bosses to defeat as well. In survival, you must survive the set number of waves until you reach the final wave, where you will face down one of 4 bosses and try to take it down. These bosses can go down really easily if you and your team work together to hammer into them with all the firepower that you've got, or they can absolutely decimate you if you aren't careful or you don't go into the fight properly equipped. But when you get that clutch kill, or everyone dies and you manage to stay alive and kill it on your own, that feeling of conquering a boss is pretty damn satisfying.
Only way out is through. That's for free.
It's not easy though, and you really have to be patient or you can absolutely get fucked up, which is why it feels so satisfying to take down the boss. I'll admit, it is incredibly daunting at first to fight these sort of bullet spongy bosses because they can absolutely wreck your shit if you let them, and you'll decide early on which ones you prefer to fight and which ones you dread. But the more you play, the more you'll realize they're not as threatening as you once believed, and you can exploit their weaknesses once you understand what weapons are the most effective against them, along with the map layout and how to properly navigate it. Other modes include a weekly event you can participate in, but that will require you to be at a pretty high level for your selected class if you even hope to stand a chance, as these can get pretty difficult. Endless, which puts you against endless waves until you eventually bite the dust, and versus survival, where one team plays as the humans and the other plays as the Zeds, which continues on until either the Zeds wipe out the human players or the human players kill the boss. This mode is fun to play with friends, and it can be pretty comical, but it's pretty much a throwaway mode because it doesn't seem to be as popular and it's more difficult to find a match, if you can even find one, because I unfortunately haven't been able to yet. Like I said though, getting to try out the Zeds and hunting your friends down can be absolutely hilarious, like when you're watching your Zed friend jump around like an idiot 50 feet in the air, or leaping towards you and falling off a cliff, thereby committing suicide. Or maybe that moment where they start chuckling maniacally and then you realize they're playing as a Scrake, which, mind you, is both difficult to kill and to avoid. In order to combat the Zed menace in the game, you get to choose from 10 different specialist classes, each with their own set of unique perks and statistics that complement that specific playstyle, such as the Berserker, the Commando, Support, Field Medic, Demolitionist, Firebug, Gunslinger, Sharpshooter, SWAT, and Survivalist. Berserker specializes in fast and hard-hitting melee attacks with increased movement speed to rip and tear.
Rip and tear until it is done.
Commando specializes in high firepower with assault rifles, LMGs, and other weapons with generally large magazine sizes. Support specializes in providing ammo to players and using shotguns to keep Zeds at bay. Field Medic serves as the team healer, which can use healing darts or healing grenades to keep their team healthy. Demolitionist uses explosives to quickly take out clusters of Zed and can provide grenades to teammates. Firebug uses fire-based weaponry to ignite crowds of Zeds that get too close for comfort and incapacitate them, or straight burn them to a crisp, like with say a flamethrower or a Molotov cocktail. Gunslinger specializes in dual-wield style weapons to deliver hard-hitting punches to groups of Zed and move quickly across the map, dual-wielding revolvers or say Desert Eagles for some serious firepower. Sharpshooter is all about keeping at a distance to pick off Zeds from afar with headshots using semi-automatic rifles or sniper rifles. SWAT is good at staying armored, better suited to using SMGs and small arms fire. And Survivalist is kind of the jack of all trades that can use any and all types of weaponry quite effectively for maximum efficiency with its own unique set of perks to complement certain archetypes. I can do a more thorough breakdown of each class in a separate video to talk about how to use each of them effectively and achieve victory possibly sometime in the future, but for now, this is the gist of how each one basically operates. With each class though, you have many different weapons, which better suit specific specialists, and there's a ton of unique weaponry to choose from. If you fancy modern militaristic assault rifles, then you're given options like the AR-15 carbine, commonly dubbed the varmint rifle, the SCAR H, which is comes equipped with an ACOG scope attachment, the M16 M203, which comes equipped with an underselling grenade launcher, so you can play Scarface if you wish, and the Stoner 63A LMG with a 75 round box clip. For SMGs, you can choose the MP7, the MP5, P90, MAC-10, which comes equipped with the incendiary rounds, and the Vector. With shotguns, you get to pick between the SG500 pump-action shotgun, the HC12 multi-action, the M4 combat shotgun, a personal favorite, or even the AA12 auto shotgun, which will take out anything that gets in your personal space. There's also brutal makeshift style weapons like the Dragon Breath, which is a shotgun that spews incendiary rounds, the HX25 grenade pistol, the Doomstick, which is a powerful quad-barreled shotgun that sends body parts soaring, the Spitfire, which is a makeshift style pistol that fires exploding flammable projectiles, or the Bone Crusher, which is a spiked mace and shield combo, so you can feel closer to those medieval times. There's even historical weapons you can wield, such as the M79 grenade launcher, the RPG, the 50 caliber Desert Eagle, the 1858 revolver, the double-barreled boomstick, or even the Winchester 1894. And lastly, there's even mad scientist style weaponry, such as the microwave gun, the Husk cannon, the Eviscerator, the Hemogoblin, Seeker 6 rocket launcher, and even a phrase thrower. So yeah, as you can tell, there's a ton of weapon variety in this game, with at least 50 weapons to try out and kill hordes of Zed with. And not only that, but every specialist has access to every weapon available, so your itchy trigger fingers will not only have plenty of shit to shoot at, but plenty of guns to spew bullets from. Granted, some classes will perform better with certain weapons, but if there's a particular gun you fancy using or one that just naturally suits your playstyle, you're free to choose whatever you decide to go with. Each class has 25 levels to achieve, which sees you increasing efficiency on perk weapons or statistics every time you level up, but every 5 levels you unlock 2 permanent perk upgrades and you can switch them around whenever you please. So what this means is that by level 25, you'll have 10 perks unlocked, and of those 10, you can choose 5 that will always be active, which you can also switch out after you complete a wave, if a particular set will benefit you better in your current situation. These could range from increasing movement speed and decreasing weapon recoil, to decreasing reload time, to making fire damage much more potent or the effects last longer, to increasing knockback with hard-hitting melee weapons, to making it so that you release a healing grenade when you enter Zed time, one that doesn't restrict your movement when aiming down the sights, one where you have a 20% chance of having an enemy explode upon death, and many other unique abilities specific to each class that greatly differ from one another. In order to stay healthy, every class has a syringe with around a 15-second cooldown that grants you around 20 health every time you use it, unless this is increased by particular stat increases, but you can also use it on a teammate as well, so it plays into the whole teamwork makes the dream work philosophy. There's also a very good variety of different maps to play that all have very intricate designs. You can fight across a prison complex, a farmhouse, a map called Power Core, where you ascend via an elevator with each wave that you complete, a map called Descent, where you descend further down a chasm every time you complete a wave, a Biotics Lab, Zed Landing, which is like a beachhead, Nuked, which is a city street you fight across with rumbles from bombs being dropped in the background, Catacombs, which is self-explanatory, Infernal Realm, which is sort of like hell or a really creepy labyrinth, Outpost, which is like a snow-covered operations base hidden in the Alps, a flying airship, a haunted circus, and several others as well, totaling to 22 different and very unique maps to explore and stand your ground against hordes of Zed. Then you have Zed time. Zed time is what sets this game apart and makes it so damn fun to play, which you no doubt took notice of in the intro, and I reckon lightly captivated you. Basically, when you perform a headshot, kill a cluster of Zed, or do something really awesome, you trigger Zed time, which is where everything enters slow motion, your weapons sound beefier, enemies can get sent flying like ragdolls, body parts go flying, and you get to see tons of gory blood splatters with bullets slowly whizzing out of the chamber. Simply put, these instances are just plain freaking awesome. And trust me when I say that there is absolutely no shortage of these.
Parts won't assemble unless you pull the lever.
Hey, asshole! Holy shit!
Nothing to it. It's this.
Holy sweet Jesus.
Coming in.
Come and get some more.
Okay. Oh! That was epic. Did you see that?
Oh, nice shot.
You.
Oh my god! That was nasty! Ew! Dude, right to dick! Now, while you might think these moments could become too frequent, or happen at the most inconvenient of times, it seems to have somewhat of a cooldown from what I've noticed, because I can be popping headshots left and right without a hitch, and it's not necessarily guaranteed to trigger, so rest assured, it's far more likely to save you than it is to get you killed. When it does trigger though, you can set up some really epic action sequences, especially if you daisy chain headshots when it's activated in order to further prolong the effect. There's also a ton of different Zed enemies to slaughter too. You've got Siths, Clots, Slashers, Crawlers, Gorefas, Stalkers, Sirens, Husks, Gorefiends, Bloats, Skrakes, and Flesh Pounds, each with their own unique attacks and behaviors to catch you off guard or to overwhelm you. Siths, Clots, and Slashers serve as your standard cannon fodder enemy types that are easy enough to kill with headshots and pick off individually, but are able to grab you, thereby holding you in place for more vicious threats, and they tend to swarm in very high numbers. Slashers not only tend to deal more damage than most other types, but on higher difficulties also tend to become far more acrobatic, able to roll, jump, and generally dodge directly out of the way of your bullets, so this can make them far more tricky and especially annoying to deal with. Crawlers look sort of like necromorphs from Dead Space that will crawl towards you, gnawing at your legs, and leaping to attack. Stalkers are able to turn invisible using cloaking technology, and will decloak to attack players with melee strikes. And Gorefas rush at players swinging their blade arm like an angry ex-wife charging at you with the intent to cut off your balls. These all make up your lower level enemy types, and then you have your more medium level enemy types that can be a bit more troublesome to deal with at times, but can still be put down relatively easily. Bloats are bloated slow moving Zed that will swipe at you if you get too close, they vomit to poison players, and upon death explode and can potentially poison other players if they're within close proximity. Bloats are not particularly threatening, and they're not very fast either, but they can catch you off guard if you aren't careful. One thing you can do to make them even less of a threat is to concentrate enough fire on their heads, and they will pop off. which will cause them to walk even slower, and if left alone, will die shortly thereafter. Sirens are anorexic-looking skeletal females that walk slowly towards you and let out a deafening scream aura to damage players, reduce the damage they take, and are able to absorb explosives, like say throwing grenades, so they can be especially difficult to deal with for demolitionists in particular, as they'll absorb any explosive projectile directed their way while letting out a scream. Husks have charged skin and are wearing backpacks that use fire-based attacks to inflict damage upon players, and can cause a lot of damage if not dealt with quickly, but if you nail the core in their chest with enough shots when they open it, or target their backpack, it'll explode, killing them instantly and dealing damage to any Zed around them in an area of effect blast, but it also damages players if they stand too close. On higher difficulties, they can also use a flamethrower when you get too close that does a great deal of damage, and they can also suicide too, which is an instant kill unless you're completely full on health and body armor, but your odds of survival are extremely low if you get hit. And then lastly, Gore Fiends are essentially just like Gorefasts, as they will rush at you as well, but instead of one arm, they have two blade arms, and they can hit you with a devastating spin attack or a flurry of swipes. And then finally, you have your two heavy hitters, Skrakes and Fleshpounds, which you can either do your best to avoid or take them out of play as soon as possible. Skrakes actually aren't too threatening if you can keep your distance and avoid enraging them. They're a bit of a bulkier Zed type with a chainsaw arm that will attack when you get too close or when you enrage them, and will move their metallic arm in front of their face to block bullets, which makes them a bit more difficult to take out. If you can get far enough away from one though, you can kill every last Zed and leave it roaming around aimlessly while you hunt for ammo or heal as necessary. So these enemies aren't too troublesome, as they can be exploited if done so with caution. I've found that bullets and especially shotguns are best for dealing with these guys, explosives less so. Fleshpounds on the other hand can be far more threatening to deal with. Basically, once you see one of these big Zeds walking around with spiked maces on its arms, kill it and kill it fast, because Fleshpounds are not as passive as Skrakes, and will sometimes become enraged and charge at you just because they see you. If they're walking towards you and you shoot at them, then yes, you will enrage and piss them off, which they'll close their arms in and rush at you, but even if you don't, they're still likely to do it anyways, so if you can, focus on taking them out quickly. They seem to be weak to explosives, and I've seen 3 to 4 shots from the N79 put them down fairly quickly, so explosives will definitely get the job done. Then, once you've managed to survive all waves, it's time to deal with one of 4 bosses: the Patriarch, Dr. Hans Volter, Abomination, or King Fleshpound. In my opinion, Abomination is probably the easiest to deal with, as I usually seem to kill it more often than I fail, and it also seems to be the most common boss type, but admittedly, it's also the most annoying to deal with. Abomination is a heavily armored boss that literally farts out these flubber-like enemies that constantly harass you and explode. But he can vomit on players when they get too close, he has a vacuum attack that can suck you in and hit you, and he can become so enraged that he'll try to ram you. In order to even damage him, you must first remove his 3 armor pieces, but be warned, because every time you remove one, which is indicated by 3 separate bars below his health, he becomes enraged and charges at you, so you want to keep at a distance before destroying it and keep running until he goes back to walking speed. Once you remove all 3 pieces, target his body where the armor used to be, and you can start whittling down his health bar, which after certain damage intervals, he'll charge you several more times, but if you keep at it, stay at a distance, and avoid his spawns, then you should have no trouble delivering the killing blow.
Way more where that came from.
King Fleshpound acts almost the same as normal Fleshpounds, but with some unique attacks, like a whirlwind move, a ground pound, the ability to summon quarter pounds, which are significantly weaker versions of Fleshpounds, and a devastating laser attack, which you absolutely want to avoid, because it can completely drain your health and armor if you take the full force of it, as it can deal around 75 hit points, and that's just on normal. Best way to deal with this boss is simply to stay ahead of it. Close or weld up any doors or passageways to cause it to pause in the middle of its charge, Take tight corners so it can't directly hit you, and avoid that laser blast as best you can. One pro tip is that the moment you hear the laser go off, if you avoid the initial shot, but you can still hear the laser, you're clear to get a few hits in. I used to be afraid to turn around because I thought I'd run into the laser, but if it fires its laser at you, you just have to wait, and then you can attack even if you still see its chest glowing. After it loses about 3/4 of its health, it will activate a shield that you must merely punch through and continue attacking to bring it down, but you will eventually kill it if you can stay one step ahead and remain in cover when it fires its laser at you. Don't take too much time with this boss, and don't allow it to get too close, because yeah, it's weaker than most, but highly aggressive and much faster than you are. Play a good game of cat and mouse, and 9 times out of 10, you'll completely annihilate it.
That's how you want to play. Let's see how you like the next wave.
Ow.
Hans and Patriarch, though, are much harder to kill solo because they're both highly aggressive and have a much wider array of attacks. Hans uses dual SCG-44s to attack players along with melee attacks, and every time he loses a certain amount of health, from 60% to 41% and down to 20%, he gains a shield that absorbs all attacks, and he becomes a bit more aggressive. Hans starts out slowly moving towards you, firing his dual STG-44s when he sees you, and taunting you when he can, but over time, he'll stop walking, and he'll start charging at you. Once you reduce his health to 60%, he'll get his first shield, and his health will change color to a more yellowish green. This phase is when he'll try grabbing players, and if successful, he can start to replenish a very large portion of his health. So if you see him grabbing a teammate, use everything you have to get him off, because you most certainly do not want him to gain back his health. He attacks by shooting you with his dual-wielded rifles, melee swipes, gas grenades that temporarily poison you, explosive grenades, and he'll even use smoke grenades to hide himself among the clouds so he can get close and possibly attempt to grab you. Towards the end of the fight, when he's down to 20%, is when he gets extremely aggressive, running around like a madman, tossing out very high explosive grenades that will absolutely kill you if you aren't careful, as they can potentially deal 50 to 70 points of damage, so it's imperative you pay attention to where they land and avoid them. Which if you do, and you or your team keeps pelting him with bullets, then he'll eventually go down.
Embrace your death!
Ah! And bloody stay dead! Rawr!
Finally, you have the Patriarch, a big, hulking, disfigured mutant creature armed with a minigun, missile launcher, and a mortar, all of which can absolutely sap away your health and armor. He can cloak as well, so he's very unpredictable and extremely dangerous, especially if you're unfortunate to face him alone. He starts by cloaking and aggressively hunting down players, constantly taunting you, revealing himself only to choose one of his 3 weapons to use against you, of which you need to get to cover or sprint behind a corner to avoid, as they will deal massive amounts of damage. On lower difficulties, you need not worry about him using his mortar, as you will only encounter that on higher difficulties, but his minigun and missile launcher can easily sap your health away if you get too cocky and you don't stay behind cover or around corners to avoid his shots. After he loses about a third of his health, he'll retreat and cloak to inject 1 of 3 syringes into his leg in order to heal while he sends his Zed children to combat you. If you can find where he's hiding, you can inflict damage and stop him from regaining his health, but it's rather difficult to do in clustered maps, or with only a couple of squad mates, though in more open battlegrounds there's only so many places he can hide. However, if you're facing him solo, it's nearly impossible to track him down, so focus on taking out the incoming Zeds, because you definitely don't want to be left dealing with them and him. Also, be wary that once he loses most of his health, he'll also try grabbing you with the tentacles on his body, allowing him to strike you with melee attacks, so keep your distance from this guy at all times. On lower difficulties, he doesn't seem to differ much with these tactics, so if you keep up the pressure, you can eventually kill him, though you are still going to struggle against his boss, and he'll likely kill you the first few times you encounter him. One thing you can do to increase your odds with any boss though, is if you're not playing as a field medic. you don't have a field medic on your team, or perhaps your field medic is incompetent as hell, as long as you have one open weight slot, you can purchase the HM Tech pistol and shoot healing darts at your teammates to keep them healthy, which will recharge relatively quick. You can also try using your syringe as well, but when you're dealing with swarms of enemies and everyone is staying mobile, it's easier said than done. Hans and the Patriarch are a lot more difficult to take out, but are actually more fun to fight, and even more satisfying to kill.
Oh, it's quick.
Now, with all that said, either you're intrigued and I've piqued your interest, or it may have completely turned you off, but if nothing else, it's well worth at least trying out. I mean, it's a simplistic game where you're killing hordes of zombie-like creatures, and yeah, for most people, that may start to become very repetitive and potentially monotonous, which is also what I initially thought. But the large variety of weapons and very generous amount of unique maps with their own creative designs definitely offsets that for me personally. Not to mention, every time you level up 5 times, you will gain access to a new perk that'll help you better play as a specific class, possibly leading to victory much more often, which in turn might simultaneously increase your enjoyment of the game. I also mentioned before that this game encourages teamwork, and it really does. Most players I've played with do a fairly good job of assisting teammates, usually either by healing injured squad mates or providing dosh to those who need it in order to better equip themselves for the upcoming battle. There's a handful of preset commands teammates can use, such as affirmative, thank you, need dosh, negative, need assistance, need healing, etc, etc. And if you have a lot of dosh you can't use because you're currently maxed out or you've earned most of the kills, then give it to your teammates so that they stand a much better chance of staying alive. One tactic I use is once I reach the last phase, which is the boss, and I've spent all I can maxing out weapons, armor, grenades, and grabbing the best weapons from my skill set, I find a spot on the ground and toss out all my dosh for my teammates, or to whoever is saying that they need it. You can't spend any of it, and you'll still get the Moneybags medal for earning the most dosh upon completion, so there's no reason not to do this, and it will greatly increase your odds of success if everyone is properly equipped. Do not be that asshole who takes all the kills, hogs all the dosh, and never distributes it to teammates. Not only are you a complete dick, but you're also likely to cost your team the match if they aren't all properly equipped, because the more players you have in a squad, the more Zeds you will face, and the more health the boss is going to have. If everyone knows what they're doing and concentrates all their firepower on the boss, it can be taken down in as little as 20 seconds, maybe less, so being a douchebag doesn't benefit anybody. I've been playing this game a lot with my pal Christian, where we've achieved several awesome victories by working together to keep each other alive, and it's just, man, it's fun as hell. I can tell you firsthand, I've had several incredibly close calls where one of us was one touch away from death, but we worked together to cover or heal each other, surviving moments where we should have died, and oftentimes we get that delicious glory kill. That rush of adrenaline you feel from these intense moments is simply unmatched. For me though, the epic slow motion kills are what absolutely sell it for me, because they're just satisfying as hell to pull off, listening to the thunderous roar of your weapons during these awesome, bloody, gory, slow motion action sequences. I should probably mention that the character you choose also cracks some pretty comical one-liners amidst all the epic carnage as well, which can make for some great laughs here and there, just making the game a joy to play in general and never taking itself too seriously. There's also these pretty cool animations you can see for your weapons too, if your clip is already full. You simply press the reload button with a full magazine and your character will spin the gun, observe it, pull out the mag, cock it back, or whatever else, and it's honestly just a nice touch on the already awesome gun porn, especially considering there aren't very many games that integrate this mechanic, with Shadow Warrior 2 being one of the few I can think of that does. So yeah guys, that's all I've got to say about the game for the moment, and I do apologize because this took a lot longer than I intended, but now that the video has concluded, I would like to know, do any of you plan to give Killing Floor 2 a try? Have you played it before, and if so, do you like or dislike it? Would you be interested in seeing more Killing Floor 2 videos on this channel, like, say, raw gameplay? I'd just like to know your overall thoughts on this game or this video, because like I said before at the start, this is something new that I'm trying, and I'm definitely interested in what you guys have to say. But, with all that said, this brings the video to a close. I hope you have enjoyed this little discussion I put together, or maybe you've enjoyed the gameplay in the background. Feel free to subscribe if you would like to, as I'm planning to upload some more videos of this game, like with my friend and I playing it, and our many highlights, especially since we've played it a ton. And we'll also at some point be checking out the new Cyber Revolt update announced about a week ago, which adds a new outfit, a new map, and 2 new guns. So yeah, really looking forward to that. I definitely plan to do more discussion videos in the future, similar to this one, about other games I enjoy, or maybe do not find very enjoyable, though I will definitely try not to make them as long. And I even have a Killing Floor 2 montage you can check out after you finish this one if you want to, along with a good variety of other stuff I plan to do, like playthroughs and multiplayer videos, so stay tuned if any of that interests you. But, if you've made it this far, then thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate your viewership. And I'll catch you later, comrades. Suck, bitch!
Yeah. I leveled up Commando to level 7.
Got him. Holy
Good
shit.
job.